What's going on? Jake here with Uncommon EDC, and today we're looking at the Vanquest Vert-7 sling bag. Now I do need to rotate it in order to fit the entire thing here in our field of view in this tabletop setting, but we will be rotating back as we look at the interior pockets and dive deeper into this bag. The Vert-7 is a 7-liter sling bag, as the name implies. They do offer a 5-liter version called the Vert-5, which we'll be taking a look at in a couple weeks here. Maybe a really great option if this one's just a little bit too large for you. This is set up as a minimalist EDC or commuter style bag. I think it works perfectly for that. What I love about the 7-liter capacity is it offers enough room for all of your essentials, especially if you're using it as a commuter bag. It can fit some bigger electronics in the Vert-5, but it's still small enough where it's difficult to really weigh this down and make it ultra heavy. Good example of that, I went to the zoo with my wife, and we kind of swapped back and forth with this bag. It's large enough that it doesn't look out of place on my frame, but also small enough where it doesn't look out of place on hers, and it wasn't super heavy, very comfortable for both of us without much adjustment to the straps. And speaking of which, I guess we can turn it around and take a look at the mesh backing here for that extra breathability. Now, the main day that we carried this, I've carried it on some smaller trips, 30 minutes to an hour, but the main day we carried this at the zoo was an all-day affair, and it was a pretty cool day, so we didn't get sweaty at all with this mesh backing. But again, it was pretty cool, and we were swapping back and forth, and so that may have helped there. Will be interesting to see, how that fares on a hotter day, but obviously can't really adjust the weather right now, so it's a little bit cooler where I'm at the moment. Now, it was also really comfortable with the strap itself. So the strap is an 1.5 inch wide panel of nylon, and so sometimes you'll get sling bags with only an 1 inch wide strap, and if you've ever carried one of those, especially if it got a little bit heavy, that can really cut into your shoulder and neck area. So the wider strap definitely helps with that. The wider the better when it comes to straps for the most part. It adjusts from 25 inches all the way up to 45 inches at a maximum, and so a nice 20-inch range between the minimum and maximum there. We have it in a pretty kind of neutral middle zone that worked well for both of us, but had room to adjust in either direction, which is nice. I don't know if they offer an extension strap, so if you need longer than 45 inches, that's definitely something I would check into on their website before making your order. The other nice thing about this strap is that it's ambidextrous, so it can swap from right hand carry, how we have it set up now, over my right shoulder, over to left hand carry, simply by swapping this one buckle from the right side to the left side, and it takes all of about 10 seconds, so you can easily go from left carry to right carry depending on your preference, or maybe for whatever reason you just want to switch for the day, you can easily do that and switch back without a lot of hassle, which is really nice. Also, all of the main compartments have 2 zippers, so you can set them up where you want them for that ambidextrous carry. The one exception is our rear concealment pocket, which only has 1 zipper on either side, but we do have zipper access from either side, so whether you're carrying it left-handed or right-handed, you can quickly and easily access that rear concealment pocket. That is set up with hook and loop on the interior as well, so you can use that as a CCW pocket. We won't be taking a look at that in today's video just because YouTube's not super friendly with that type of content, but I will be talking about the dimensions if you're curious what type of items might fit in that compartment when we get to that segment of the video. For now though, let's turn it back to the front and get into our main compartments here. So external dimensions are 16.5 inches tall by 8.75 inches wide, and then it's about 4 inches deep, fully loaded like this. I think they advertise it as 3.75, but mine's definitely kind of pushing out with the contents I have in here. I did swap out for some common area items that people might carry. I tried not to load it out too much just so we can keep the video a little bit shorter, and so we'll see what fits in some of those various pockets here. The external material as well, this is a 500D Cordura offered in 3 different colors, and so there's the solid black version, shadow gray, which is what we have here, and then a more tactical multicam black. The gray and the black versions are ultra gray man style carry, definitely would fit in any office. They don't look out of place at all, and those ones are $149. The multicam black is $159, so you do pay a $10 premium for that one. They all have these nice Horween leather tags on there. These are USA made leather. Have the Vanquest there, as well as the small one on our strap, which looks really nice as an accent. All of our zippers are reverse threaded YKK, which is nice because they're not going to snag on anything. It's not the biggest deal in the world when they're not reverse threaded, but I always like these reverse threaded because it kind of eliminates a lot of the chance of it getting snagged and then ripping the zipper open. If you've ever had one of those zippers rip open, it can be super annoying. And so that reverse threading just kind of minimizes the opportunities for that to happen. Also just keeps them a lot cleaner because it's only exposed to the interior of the bag instead of the exterior, which is all exposed to all that dirt and grime. So we have 4 compartments on the exterior, a bunch more interior pockets as well that we'll take a look at when we get there, but we'll start with our exterior pockets, starting with the top zippered compartment up here. This is 3.75 inches wide by 3.5 inches tall, and it is entirely covered in this loop panel or Velcro panel, so you can put your patches or organizers on there. Worth noting that this main compartment above the front pocket is also hook and loop, and that's about 4-inch by 8-inch panel, so plenty of real estate if you want to show off your patches or just add additional organizers. So that's also hook and loop. I left it minimal. I didn't want to cover it in patches even though I have a ton, because some people don't love patches, and I wanted to show what it looks like without them. This isn't a super aggressive grabby loop panel. It's not going to grab onto a bunch of random materials and stuff like that. Fairly soft and color matched to the bag, so blends in pretty nicely. If you don't care about that at all, it pretty much goes unnoticed. And so just wanted to point that out before we get into the zippered pocket. So once again, we have those YKK zippers with the Spartan zipper pulls. So all of these zippers have these Spartan zipper pulls. You can easily remove these if you choose to and replace them with your own zipper pulls, but they're really nice, grabby, and make it really quick and easy to rip open those zippers because they just give your finger something to grab onto, which is nice. And so inside this pocket is just kind of a one elastic strap across the back. So this is perfect for your smaller items. So I have a Bluetooth speaker in there, which fits perfectly. I think like AirPod cases might be a good option for there. Even something like keys, although there's no key keeper in this segment, there's a bunch throughout the bag, but none in this segment. I think this is a good place for like your key fob and keys to go as well. Just a nice quick access pocket that's available on the exterior segment that your smaller items aren't going to get lost amongst all of your larger items. Worth noting that all of the pockets, including this one, are only accessible if you flip the bag around to your front or if you remove the bag. And so this is still going to be on your back. Obviously the concealment pockets are going to be hidden on your back, and so you do need to either flip it around or remove the bag to get into any of these. Before we get into our main compartment here in the back, we'll look at our front compartment. And so same thing here, we have those Spartan zipper pulls on YKK zippers. Worth noting on this compartment and our main compartment is that we do have the locking zippers, so you can add a small lock on there. Now those small locks are usually pretty easy to break or pick, and so easily removable, but does add that layer of security, especially while it's on your back. No one's going to be able to get into it while it has that lock on there. And so nice to be able to lock this if you have electronics or cash or even a CCW in one of these pockets instead of that back pocket. Just gives you a lot of options to secure those items. And so we'll get this open and take a look at the interior here. You can see a nice high-vis interior. So we have a 210D ripstop nylon in the back, and then this softer material that's going to be super soft. So if you have electronics, it's not going to scratch up the screens like your phone or small tablets. It's also not super grabby or aggressive, even less so than the hook and loop panel up top. And so super soft. So if you're not using it for that, you can just put stuff in there and not worry about it snagging on there. But you can also use this to attach your hook and loop holsters, hook and loop organizers, REs, whatever you want onto this panel here. Now this front compartment is 9¼ inches tall by 8 inches wide and about 1¼ inches deep. And this back compartment is perfect for small tablets, paperback books, notebooks, small notebooks and things like that. Just kind of an open pocket for your devices. You can also put your cell phone in there. And so in there I have a Kindle e-reader, but this can fit tablets up to 8.5 inches tall by 7¼ inches wide. So that's like something like an iPad mini. Again, Kindle e-readers, Nooks and things like that will fit into here nicely. Again, softback books will fit in there pretty nicely, but you can also just use it to dump stuff in if you don't want just a larger object there. And you also have room for that larger object or to dump stuff in the front of this compartment. Again, that does go the entirety of that 9¼ inches in depth, so you can get pretty deep in there. It goes all the way to the bottom of our bag down here. And so folding that back more, we have these 2 attachment points for your keychain. It does come with a leash. I would just have that in the main compartment instead of here, but you can use it either with or without the leash. So I have some just kind of EDC keychain tools. Didn't want to put my actual keychain or keys on there, so just threw some tools on there to show what that might look like, but those just sit on there. And then we have this mesh pocket. This mesh pocket's pretty cool because it's translucent, but there's no actual holes. So you can see that grid pattern where it looks like there would be openings, but there is that translucent material behind there. So even if you have smaller objects that can fit through those openings, it's not going to thread through here. This is completely sealed off. Also has that reverse threaded YKK zipper with our Spartan pull. It's about, I'd say, probably 4.5 to 5 inches in depth, so it doesn't go the entire depth, but just this top portion that folds down. And in here is perfect for these small objects. You can see I have some AirPods, a SD card reader, earplugs, some adapters. I think there's a flash drive in there, and small flashlight. Just a bunch of little small objects that I don't want to get mixed up and floating around the bag. It keeps everything nice and contained in there, and folds, you can see really nicely with that opening. It kind of folds right at that point, so the objects in here aren't going to be folding up because they stop at the same point as these zippers. And so we'll close that up and get into our main compartment before finally moving on to the rear compartment. Actually, one more thing I wanted to show, since we're getting to that point anyway, is that we have the sides over here that have these 1-inch nylon straps. Those are just for stability, to keep everything kind of on your body. It just makes it carry a lot better, but you can use it as an attachment point. As you can see, I have an O-clip Ultra clip to one of these, and that just clips on nicely. It is not intrusive because the zipper stops at the top of these loops, and those loops, again, just keep everything nice and stabilized. Worth noting, again, on the main compartment, we have the locking version of those zippers, and so we can lock that up if we choose to do so, but if not, we can open all the way down to the straps, which is about a 3/4 opening, and so not going to fully open, but you can do about 3/4. I did pull the tablet out of there, which gives me a little bit more flexibility in this pocket. With that in there, it's going to keep it a little bit stiffer, so you might only be able to curl it up at about the halfway point. And so just kind of depending on what you have in the main compartment, it really determines how foldable this is going to be. But you can see we have more of that high-vis ripstop nylon and that softer hook and loop type material that's non-scratchy and can also attach our CCW holsters, our organizers, or our patches. In the main compartment, I didn't want to overfill this, so I just threw an EDC kit that I'm currently using in there, and that's just kind of to fill up the space. But this main compartment is pretty big. It's 13.25 inches tall, 8 inches wide, and about 2.25 inches deep. The one downside to this pocket for me is that it can't fit like a Nalgene, and Nalgenes are pretty thick, so that's not super surprising, but even some of my narrower bottles didn't fit so well in there. Now it can fit like a 16-ounce water bottle that you get, prepackaged bottled water. That does fit in here, but the thicker bottles that I have were all pretty limiting, so I had to go with pretty small bottles, so didn't have quite the capacity that I'm used to with a water bottle, and so there's not really any way to add that to the exterior either. I guess you could probably put something that attaches here, but it's not a wide attachment point either, so it might be kind of awkward there. And so just not a great opportunity to carry larger water bottles if that's something that you need inside your bag. So did want to point that out here. So in the back, we have another either small laptop or large tablet pocket. This one fits up to 11 inches tall by 7.75 inches wide. So I think this is an iPad, maybe an 11 inch. I'm not 100% sure. But again, once you know those dimensions, you can measure that out. It can fit up to 13-inch tablets in some cases. My iPad Pro, I think, was a little bit tight to fit in here, especially with like the pencil and stuff on the side and the case on it. And so it was a little bit wide for this. It would probably just fit in the main compartment, but in this back compartment, it felt a little bit cramped in there. And so went with my smaller iPad there. But nice pocket, especially in comparison to the Vert-5. If you're carrying a larger tablet, this is definitely the way that you're going to want to go. Now, inside of here, we have full access to all of that 13.25 inches in depth or in height, and so you can go all the way down there. Plenty of room for larger items as well. And we also have 2 more keychain attachment points, and so you can see those here. And I attach the leash to either end, so they're attached to each other. Some people I know have mentioned in the comments that they'll do that and then dangle stuff from there, so they can put a bunch of different keychain things on there. But you can also just remove one end, clip it, and clip your keychain to there and have that floating around wherever in the bag, and that is included in there. So 4 different places you can attach it, and both of the pairs will pair together, so you can do the same thing in the front pocket if you want the leash to cover those two attachment points. We also have another pocket here that's about 5 inches in depth and 8 inches in width, and it's that same mesh material that doesn't have any opening, so you can put small objects in there. Again, went a different route this time. I think I have a Hank and one of these batteries that have the magnetic charging, and so just have some extra accessories in there. But another really great place for those smaller objects, especially if you don't have like an organizer in there. A lot of the smaller objects end up in this organizer, but if you don't have something like that, it's really, really great to have these pockets. And again, we have that high vis ripstop nylon back here, 210 denier ripstop nylon, and so everything's going to be super high vis even in lower light environments. And you can use the entirety of this segment for, which I think is probably about 9 inches or so, maybe close to 10 inches of loop panel with 8 inches in width there. So another place to just attach a ton of different things. Now, rounding that one out, let's go to our back compartment. That's that concealed compartment. And so these aren't necessarily a secret so much anymore, because pretty much every bag has these rear concealment pockets. Perfect for your passports, your cash, and again for your CCW. And no matter which side, you have access from either side, which is nice. But we'll just go from this side to take a look at the interior here. Ripstop nylon on one side, 210 denier. Another thing of that loop panel on the opposite side. There's also some sort of like plastic sheeting, almost like a thin cutting board in there to keep some rigidity there, so it's not imprinting too much on your back. And then again, you have that mesh padding there, so there's a little bit of separation between whatever you put in here and your back, which is nice for comfort. And so right now I just have a notebook sleeve. Just did a video on this Garage Built Gear notebook and pen sleeve. But again, you can put your CCW in here. It works with hook and loop holsters, and the compartment here is 10 inches tall by 7¼ inches wide. So if you're curious if your carry is going to fit, the best thing to do is get a piece of paper, measure it out, and cut it to those dimensions, 10 inches by 7¼ inches. Set your carry plus the holster on top of that piece of paper, and then you'll be able to get a good sense of whether or not it's going to fit in there. I would always leave a little bit of margin there, so you don't want to utilize the entire 7¼ inches in width or the entire 10 inches in height there. So maybe go down to 6½ inches so that you have room for like the zippers and stuff, so it's not actually imprinting and pressing onto that zipper, adding added stress to it, and also just scratching it up, which you probably don't want. You can keep it off the zipper. So I would always go a little bit smaller, but if you just print out that paper and again do like 9½ inches by 6½ inches, and if your carry fits on top of that, it should fit in this compartment. So if you're looking for that CCW, that's the best way to measure that out. Now that's everything for this one. Again, $149 for the stealth gray and the shadow gray, I'm sorry, and the solid black. $159 for the multicam black, and I'll link to them down in the description of the video. Let me know what you think of this bag down in the comments. Definitely want to hear your thoughts on it. Anything you might want to see when I get to the 5-liter version of this bag, which again we'll be doing in the next couple of weeks here. Anything that you might be curious would fit in either or. Always happy to answer those questions if I have the items available to check. But thanks again for watching. If you enjoyed the video, consider liking, commenting, subscribing, checking out some of my other content. It all helps the channel out a ton, and I hope you have a great one. Take care.